Hello, hope you guys are all having a good one. Today's video, I'm just going to be going over the updates or that Elemental Week brought up. Is this a very delayed video? Yes, and I hope some people go do check this out still. Unfortunately, I recorded this. I had GeoGen completely break on me, got that all fixed. And I had, unfortunately, LiquiGen also major issue, also got that fixed. So, not too sure what that happened, but yeah, this is unfortunately a repeat of a 45-minute video. So I'm going to try and keep this short, concise, and quick. I'm going to quickly show off how to do the major changes that they've implemented and discussing what they've done to each of the new software, to the new updates to the existing software. So by going into help, and then going into release notes, we're going to be able to access, the new updates that have come to, the new software, right? To the new updates to the software, sorry. There has been an update since, I think, to definitely EmberGen and maybe GeoGen, I believe. I haven't updated that, so I'm going to have to update that mid-video. But yeah, so we've got the key updates for 1.2 for EmberGen was mostly along the lines of being able to move the simulation bounds. As we can see, mostly really here. We did get a key update to being able to record mouse movement, so live recording to the timeline with gizmo parameter changes, stuff like that. Control-Alt-R to randomize all, randomizable parameters. So you can set parameters to be randomizable to an extent. Not all parameters work like that, but the majority do that should have access to that. Will be able to. There's a couple other things here, like setting a maximum flipbook resolution, which I think is great. But that's not something that I really need to dive into, as it's such a small thing. So this can be, for example, let's just say you want to see, we'll go over bounds position first. So now we can set the bounds over here. Now, a key thing to note is by moving the bounds, it doesn't move the emitter. Is that an issue? Maybe. I think in the future, no, ultimately, really, that's not something that you'd really want. Main reason why is because generally when you're moving the bounds, right, you have a pre-existing path that you want the simulation to take. So let's say you parent it, for example, to the lovely video that was released by Django Fix themselves. And we saw, for example, the golem effectively with its fireball moving throughout the cave. When you have that simulation, the emitter parented to the bone, or a specific point that you've highlighted, to the model that you've imported, you don't want to move the bounds and then have that emitter move as well, because then that's obviously going to move the emitter away from the character. So although it may, at first glance, not really make much sense, in that context, it makes a lot of sense. So if you're doing also like a rocket launch, right, this would be great. As you can therefore not need to have a massive bound. Yeah, there's a lot of really awesome things that you can do in regards to that. So for example, if let's say we want to do this, so we do have this option here to like randomize. What's the button here? So it's shift click, and so I believe it was Control-Alt-R, I believe it was. Just going to double check. Control-R, I was correct. So just clicking into, where is it? Randomized. Here, we've got randomized. You can always click this here to randomize, as well as going Control-Alt-R. Doesn't seem to... Am I misclicking? Sorry. Let me see. Add a shortcut to randomize parameters, Control-R. Seems to not be working. I might have done something wrong. That's unfortunate. I'm not too sure. I don't know. we'll have to get back to that one maybe some other point. I don't know. I'm not going to be re-recording this one because I find more issues, unfortunately. But anyway, let's reset this back to... Oops. Ah, man. There we go. Reset it back to its default bounds, and we're going to click here to add it to the timeline. And what we're going to do, make sure we set, to 0. And then we can, move along the path, for example. And if we go to, make sure we have auto key turned on, we can drag it up. And here we can see it move up. And so with this, we can also grab the position, set the position of our object, and we can once again drag this upwards. And here we can see the bounce move, with the, I guess, object that we're doing. And you can get some really, really cool stuff. So if you spend more than, 10 seconds, as I showed, you can probably get some really cool, stuff. You could have, throwing a ball. You could have, a fireball. I mean, a rocket takeoff. There's a lot of things that, you can utilize this amazing new feature. I think its main, I guess, its key thing will be utilizing it from an imported mesh, and when you're trying to match that, I think that's the key usage that you'll get from this, but it does have other really cool uses, as you can see here, for normal stuff. Anyway, let's move on to GeoGen. I've already recorded a video showing off one of the new features, but I'll show off the other new key feature. So we'll see you when I get to that. Okay, so in GeoGen, we can now see the new release notes. I've just updated to the latest version, which just fixed a couple things. Don't expect any new major updates and changes anytime soon, as I do believe Jenga are having a little bit of a break as they've been grinding off these big updates. So maybe we get to see... I did see Gil working on some really cool stuff. I believe he was doing... Gil, I believe, is the main guy that does GeoGen stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But no, I saw him working on some, implementing some work from Django Fix into a game to sort of show off how that, or at least, maybe making an example of how, everything could be applied into a video game. I'm not too sure how long that's going to be going for, but from what I saw, it looked really awesome thus far. But here, the release notes, we can see, so bear in mind, this is still a beta, work in progress, and I believe, I can't remember if LiquiGen is still an alpha, but open alpha, or if it was in beta. I think it was open alpha. So do, bear in mind, LiquiGen, GeoGen, there may be issues that you run into, and that's unfortunate, but that's kind of the way that, how betas and alphas work, Otherwise, you don't really want, just one functionality out of these things when they release, would be the other thing. So, what do we have here? We've added support for subgraphs, which are really, really awesome. I'm still getting my hands wrapped around them, but from what I've used, they're really, really cool. We've got ground relief noise parameters to this shape node. I can't quite remember off the top of my head what ground relief is. I believe that's the way that one of these shapes, I guess, mold into the ground. It could either be that it follows the ground better, or it makes the ground be less stretched when trying to implement these shapes. I can't quite remember. That's something that, I have to figure out as time goes. There's a rock node which has removed maximum height. A couple extra things here. Splitter node had some also changes. Some little fixes as well. The other key thing is that we now have splines. I'm not too sure where that is from here. I do believe the fractal node is new. I'm also going to be honest with you guys. I haven't really fully gone around to figuring out the fractal node. Unfortunately, I will have to go around and watch the Django released a couple like tutorials showing off some of the new features, so I have to go around and watch that. But I've been working on some games. We've got to make like a game each week, which is quite yeah, that's quite the ask, unfortunately. So there's also a big change when it comes to ray traced and path traced rendering, noticeable, like severely. And I think this is like one of my favorite updates to this, because I did find, I mean, ultimately you can look at it like, yeah, are you really going to be rendering your finalized view in GeoGen? No. I wouldn't generally expect that to be the case. I mean, if you want to show off like a cool example, like of, I guess, what your terrain looks like and stuff like that, great. But it's never going to be something that's going to contend within a full-on offline rendering system like, Cycles, Arnold, or bring it into an online renderer such as like Unreal. But that's just one of those things, right? That's not really the point of it, unless, hey, maybe they end up adding something. But for now, I mean, path tracing, amazing. I think it's the only one that includes path tracing, which allows you to get some really cool extra aspects such as emission and whatnot. I'm not too sure where spline is, but they have added splines. I can tell you that now. I just don't know where it is in here. So going over those new features, also an amazing, immaculate new base thing, base terrain preset. I just got to remember, I'm switching between multiple different programs. I was having to deal with 3ds Max yesterday, and that was a pain. I really like this new default scene. I gotta be honest, the last one, it was fine. It wasn't my favorite. This, I think, is a major upgrade. Yeah, I mean, is it like, you're perfect? No, but it shows off perfectly what, I mean, you'd be looking for, really, in a terrain. So we can see here, already, we've got ourselves a cool wee subgraph here. So to add a subgraph, you can just add it here. Subgraph, boom. That's really, really cool. You can double click into it, and you click root. I don't know if there's another method of escaping, not that I know of, so you just got to click here, but there may be something more to it. So this can be worked pretty awesomely, as we can add, for example, a base height, for example, and then if we drag out, I don't know if there's a better way of doing this. I found that you have to always right-click. You can't drag out and add a subgraph thing here. That's something that I personally would like to see in the future. Just because, yeah, you can do it like this, but at the same time, if I'm just dragging out, it's just going to be a bit easier. I'm the kind of guy that adds stuff like along in a line here. Maybe that's just me. I find it a bit easier, for example. So just for consistency reasons, that'd be awesome. So here we can see we've added an output, and now we've got this output where we can go to, for example, I don't know, we can add an adjust node, right? And then let's say we wanted to plug this into a renderer. Here we can see that terrain that we've added, via the subgraph, which we can, double click and open, and we can see how it's all working here, relative height, whatnot, which we've fed into an output, into therefore an adjust, and this works pretty seamlessly. It's really, really cool. And this can lead to a lot of really awesome things, where you could almost go, let's just say we wanted to add, I don't know, let's add a fast erosion, for example. And we can go here. And, I mean, obviously this doesn't look great, right? Because I'm not spending any time on it. So let me just shove that, turn down the intensity. Maybe set the scale high, but like a lower intensity. And we've set this to the output. And so this just means that now we've got a cool wee subgraph here. With all the height information. We can rename this, so we can probably rename it to, let's just say height. And then from here, we can do this. Go to output. We can probably go subgraph. I believe if we go in here and add an input, yep, we can add this in here. And we can add, let's add, for example, I don't know, we could start going with colorized nodes. And so let's just say we wanted to work with, I don't know, maybe a slope. Here we can now start setting up all the coloring, texturing related things in this subgraph. And once again, you'll obviously have to output here. Oops, make sure we drag it in. And here, we've got this awesome workflow where we can just set everything into our own little subgraphs. So we can F2 for the keybind to change this, and we can go textures. Now, along this lines, we've also got an amazing new feature, not new feature, but new update. We've got a bunch of these new, I guess, set maps are predefined colors that we can utilize here. And, these are awesome and will help speed up your process of setting up some of the materials that you may be using. And whatnot. And of course, you always have the functionality of utilizing your own existing set maps as well as making your own ones. So if there's something that you particularly like, there's nothing stopping you from utilizing, what you're doing prior to that. And that's pretty cool. So we can play around with like other ones. We can do occlusion if that was what we're after. We could do cavity. We could do slope. We could do like my favorite, propagation, which is always really, really cool. Can play around with the stuff here. Get some real cool. Details. And so that's going over really subgraphs and how they work. Really, really awesome. Just makes everything so much more cleaner, especially when you're working with big stuff. If you're just making a really small setup, then fair game, right? But you can get some really cool stuff. Now I'll quickly go over the splines. I did make a video exclusively going over them, so do check that one out if you want a more in-depth look at everything. But we can add, for example, a noise, which will just plug into the height map. I'll add a color map here. Just going to set this to be like a gray, just as like a default. As we can see here, all these new shadows look so much better, which I really, really like. And we can add this, I'll just turn down the relative height, so we're just getting a pretty flat thing that we're working with. And here we can go into the mask. If I add this into a... I could go even like height map from mask even to show a full example. I might add a mask adjust is what I'm looking for, just so we have some little bit of control. And so if you double click, once you have the mask selected, you should be able to add, there we go, add these nodes. And so, for example, we can also control and click 2 points, and we can merge them here. That's how you merge them. And here we've got ourselves a cool little design that we may like. We've got a bunch of control over the range, so you can create your own little, here we go, like we got a little diamond here, for example. Maybe that's a cool shape that you like. And you can play around with a lot of these here. Here's a bunch of controls like range modulation. And you can see this here. We've got, you can fill the ring. They're just giving me a little bit of a weird result. I think there might be some of the, there we go, default settings that I have. So filling in the ring can give you some really cool results there if you want to create your own custom shape. It's almost like a keycap for a computer keyboard. We've also got a bunch of other settings, like you can add a warp. You can give that, and that can give some really cool results. So you can get some really cool like river designs utilizing this potentially. I mean, there's a lot that you can do with it, right? You got remaps as well, of course. So that's just like how bold you want it to be. Alternatively, you can use this remap here. If I'm actually viewing it, we'll see the changes there. Then we can see from the mask we've extruded that really cool result there. Play around with the output range as well. So we've got some cool like mountain path almost. That can give you some really cool results there. I mean, you could, like, this is endless, right? We can also, I saw something that they were, Nick was showing off. Using, I believe it was maybe rocks, I believe. If I do this, and then setting a mask to be, I believe that. And then if we set the visibility from mask, we can play around with something like there. And we can start adding, rocks along a path here as well. I mean, there's a lot that you can do with this. It's really cool. So, yeah. Hopefully that gives you some great ideas on how you can utilize them. And we'll move on to LiquiGen. So, last but not least, we've got ourselves LiquiGen, which is, amazing. They've done a heap for this new update. I think this has probably got the biggest amount of changes. So, I won't be able to cover everything. I can only cover as well what I've experienced, and like I mentioned before, not having much time, I haven't been able to fully dive into everything. They've added surface tension, probably like the biggest change in my opinion. They've also added white water, which is amazing, and adds a lot more to this in terms of how realistic it is. So they've added spray, foam, bubbles, and an emitter in which it emits from. We got a bunch of different view options. It changed from an APIC to PIC flip solver. There's a couple other things, but that's like the main stuff there. Some rendering changes and fixes, UI stuff, bug fixes, the usual. But I mean, this is amazing. So what a heap of stuff. And I'm going to quickly show off Crown Splash. High quality. I do know there is an issue currently going into path tracing on this specific sample. So feel free to set up your own one, but just for a quick showing off, I can show off this. So if I'm just going to quickly turn off, I believe that collider there. So I'm going to duplicate this collider for what I'm going to do in a minute. We're going to add white water. So from white water, you add a white water node, in which you also add an emitter. And from the emitter, you need to add this. Now, this isn't where the emitter... This isn't like white water emits solely from here, but it more means everything within here is emitted. So I'm just going to increase the radius a little bit to maybe 17. So it just means that white water can exist in here, but white water won't exist outside. So it also stops culls, things that shouldn't be there. So this is already the existing one. For speed, I'm going to change this to run at 0.1. I'd recommend doing the same as well, especially if you're going to follow along. If you're not following along and just looking to see the update, for your game really won't matter too much to you. These are all 4K. I do not recall having a bunch of 4Ks. Let me just set a random HDRI just so we get a bit of light going here. This will run a lot better for me. So there is a current issue with surface tension being a little bit shaky. That's just one of those things, and as you know, still in alpha, they only just added it. We'll see that get changed in time. And so I'm going to quickly add another collider, and we're going to add a primitive. We're going to change this to be a box. So this is going to show off the white water, which we can already see a bit of white water existing, and I'll go over all that. So I'm just going to see all these. Might keep that to being like a 1, set that to be 5, and we can see it fully going off. Just going to reset that. I can turn off this emitter, I believe. Oops, not that one, this one. There we go. And then I'm just going to set this collider's rotation. Just going to set it to default. Go to around 1,000 frames or so. Let's make sure I change the right one. Why are we not? That should hopefully... okay. It's going the opposite way to what I thought it was going to go. Doesn't make a difference, really. As we can see here, we got ourselves some white water working. Could change this to like 2,000 if we want it to be quicker. Oops. I do not have a drain right now. I'm also going to set... oops, wrong way. I'm going to set this to be... I'm just going to right-click. I'm also going to set the interpolation to linear, so it's not... so it's moving at a consistent speed. And we can see the white water being added here. Now, right now, it's not looking great because you have to still set it up to, you know, specific parameters that you want. So for me, you know, 2 centimeters, quite big. I might leave that one actually now, but the foam... let me see what each thing is. I'm just going to set the transparency... play with the transparency. So we can see that this is now the foam here. I'm going to decrease it from 5 centimeters as we're doing quite a small simulation there. So we can see once we fine tune some stuff there, we're going to see that looking a lot better. That I believe is the spray. It's quite all over the place. I'm not too sure why. I'm just going to make that really... I want that to be really subtle. I might turn it off or something. I'm not too sure. It's acting a little bit weird. We got bubbles existing. You can play around with like bubbles and stuff if you want them to be noticeable or not. But here we can see, you know, the whole... Oh, man. Okay, I might make this go for a significantly longer, as well as changing it to like, I don't know, 4,000. Are we going to... Yep, that's right. So here we can see we've now got white water added, and it, you know, swells along with it. Does better when you set up your settings a bit better, but you know, just trying to show it off relatively quickly as well. So that's super awesome, and works pretty well, honestly. So we got ourselves a little bit of a whirlpool going. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. We're gonna make this much higher. 10K. There we go. That's a lot better. A lot better. And we can play around with a lot of stuff like, you know, drag, stuff like that. Bubbles, buoyancy, drag for that as well. Spray. So we can change like the decay, make it die out so much quicker. As, you know, maybe we don't want it to last too much longer. Alternatively, we can turn it a lot off and it just exists for a lot longer. up to, I guess, what you're wanting there. We can maybe increase the drag as well. Well, whatever is suiting your stuff. You can also turn off the spray and the bubbles, for example, if you do not like them. I'd also recommend always increasing the particles. It's going to take. Oh, that was incredibly quick to update. Early testing that was taking a lot longer. That can add a heap more. I'm not too sure if that actually added that much more. Oh well. We can get some really cool stuff. Probably the decay is too high for it. Let me change. Play around with that. There we go. That's looking pretty cool. I mean, I haven't used this that much, I gotta be honest. Like, I haven't had the time to really go over a lot of this, so, bear with me, And here we've got a lot of change settings that you can change, so like trapped air, wave crest. These will, sort of play around with like how much things are spawning, where they're spawning, stuff like that. Trapped air emission. This will add a heap more, but use it sparingly, I guess, as you will get some odd stuff pop up if you turn it way too high, of course. Stuff like wave crest as well will give you similar results there. Initial lifetime, you can set them to be much higher as well. They're going to last a heap longer as well. Similar to the whole decay and whatnot. Full out distance. That's interesting. I assume that has something to do with the original primitive that we added. But yeah, ultimately, those are probably the key things there. There is surface tension and stuff. I believe density is also new. I'll just quickly go over that as well before I end this. A little bit of a funny example here, but this is great to show off these sorts of things here. We can see the surface tension and whatnot interacting amazingly here, and so playing around with some of these things like turning down the surface tension, for example. We can see how it sticks not so much together. It's breaks up a lot more, which is more realistic for something such as water, but for stickier substances like maybe like a gel or honey, for example, or like those sorts of things, you'll want to increase the surface tension. Look at it all; it just like drips down. Works super well. I mean, this is an amazing new fix. Obviously, this is heavily working well with the stickiness feature here. But surface tension's doing some awesome changes here. This is giving me some really cool results. But no, definitely would recommend bumping up the stickiness for these sorts of things. You'll see it like, I don't know, that looks really cool though. And this is, of course, density. You can play around with like the weight of the water or liquid and stuff like that. So if it's a really dense, heavy liquid, it will change stuff like how much it's going to stick, of course, as like stickiness can only hold something for so long when something's super heavy. But I don't know really how much you'd want to play around too much with that. Especially if you're mostly just doing water and those sorts of substances. But no, these are like the main changes, I believe, to, LiquiGen. I do believe they have increased the maximum amount of particles and stuff that you can have. I'm not too sure where. Increase, maximum number of particles supported, and those sorts of things, which just means that for those of you who are like running into issues, I guess when you're just capping everything out, that's going to be something heavily wanted. I'm not too sure what the max is now. Improves sticky boundary conditions with rotating geometry. So effectively things that you're trying to get like goo to stick on. I believe there's a preset for that. Is it? Maybe this? Don't save. Oh, right, you have to move this manually. Right. Here we go. I mean, we're not rotating it too much, but sticking works a whole lot better. Something I didn't show, but I'll show in that I didn't show in EmberGen that they added, but it's also added here, is we can do timeline recording. And so if you want to use timeline recording, you can click position, make sure you have this on, and you go to timeline recording. Now it will see the red outline. Ooh. This is gonna... Hold on. So we can see it's working. Okay. So it does work. I've just run into an issue. I've just realized. Oh, okay, hold on. That's super high. I'll re-go over that. But I just found out that the liquid doesn't interact as well when you are recording. Interesting. Not too important. I guess it's mostly the stickiness. But as you can see here, we're seeing all these keyframes being added. And here we can see it interacting, which is really cool. I guess if you want to see real time how it would interact, unfortunately that's not a thing, but that's a really cool feature anyway, and it does work for the most part really awesomely. So that's the same way that it would work if you were to do it in GeoGen. Sorry, I'm going through everything except EmberGen. They've also added the curve editor to both things. So let's just say we were going to go, keyframe, then we were to go in heat, and let's just say we're to go to maybe 100 frames. Make sure that we have auto key on, bring it up. We can see here, brings it up, all goopy and whatnot. We can now see and play around with the curve editor here. So let's say here's something that I usually like doing. It's making a more harsher curve here. You can get some really cool movements going there. Alternatively, we can always move it like that. I mean, what you want to do, smooth it out how you want it to smooth, how you want it all to work, completely customizable there. So you can get some really awesome controls there. That's pretty much covering everything I want to go over in terms of EmberGen, GeoGen, and LiquiGen. So I guess to conclude this video, ultimately, these are some amazing new features that they've added. Heaps of new awesome stuff. Can't really wait to fully utilize these. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit for me to utilize it, but for those of you guys who got a bit more time on your hand, or you're looking to implement this into your workflow, I hope this is super awesome. I hope this video was actually helpful as well, showing off how to implement and how you can really utilize some of these new features. I'm really looking forward to some of the new stuff that they've teased, especially with like EmberGen 2.0 and what's going to come with that. I did hear that ultimately don't expect 2.0 to come out at all this year. There's a possibility, but because they're sort of on break right now, as well as there's quite a lot that they need to implement. Even if they've been adding some new stuff, like they've sort of implemented stuff like sparse, but probably not to a fully workable extent. But yeah, I mean, there's a heap that I'm really looking forward to in those regards. I think personally, if I were to request something, and this is going to come off probably terribly, but caching, I was having a think about this a couple nights ago when I was playing around. I think last time I was recording, I think caching would probably be like outside of like 2.0 EmberGen. I don't really know completely what they have coming. I saw some of the stuff that they're looking at implementing for LiquiGen and GeoGen, but I think caching, especially for EmberGen, would be probably the key thing. I think sparse, though, will sort of, at least, what we may run into issues with EmberGen now, sparse will significantly, what's the word, reduce. But ultimately, everybody will always find the the extent in which their computer can handle, and I think that's inherently where caching will become powerful, especially for those people with smaller, like less powerful GPUs. It does make things a bit more accessible, and ultimately I do understand, these are meant to be real-time solutions, and I think definitely stick with that being the key thing. I think that's like by far, it's why I decided to go towards Django Fix. It's why most people probably did, among the multitude of other features, clean as UI that anybody can pick up. Dude, I've tried Houdini. I can tell you now, I did back at one of my courses for one of my diplomas. We did that for a term, and that was a little chaotic among other things. But I played around with the Blender built-in fluid stuff, as well as playing around with Maya's built-in features as well. But honestly, Django Fix, they got the best features. I think the only thing really there that would hold them back is if they don't implement a caching feature. I think that's where you'll be able to visualize these massive, massive things. And I think, for now, ideally, we probably won't need that, but there are probably limitations with, how much your computer can handle. And unless you've got like crazy amounts of VRAM, you'll just be combining simulations. But that's something that I'd hope to see in the future, albeit I'd love to see that probably like version 3 or 4 .0 of EmberGen, not anytime soon, of course. But I thought I'd share that as something that I'd be interested in the future. Albeit bear in mind I hate caching. Definitely had to sit there for a couple of days on my old PC, or some of the school PCs back when we were doing Houdini. But something that does allow you to, take things that next step further, where unfortunately VRAM limits exist. But yeah, thank you guys all for watching. Have a good one. I hope this was, entertaining. I hope that you've learnt some, and I hope that you are, just as excited to go and explore where you can really go when it comes to Django software and these new updates that have been implemented. But yeah, thank you guys all for watching. Have a good one, and we'll catch you guys hopefully in another tutorial. Maybe I make another tutorial in GeoGen. Probably not soon. I've got so many assessments coming up. It's not funny. So yeah, we'll see, depending on how things go. But no, thank you. Have a good one, and we'll catch you guys next time. Laters. Bye-bye.